Kevin Cook here with another edition of Zacks Research Desk. My topic, the memory supercycle. Let's dive right in. Got a lot to cover. We're going to move fast. How in the world did I miss it is a big question. So our first slide is Micron. Obviously a huge winner of late. I sold Micron at $120 back here in early September because it was doing nothing. I had no cash in my portfolio. I wanted to employ other ideas. And I still believed that, Wall Street hated Micron, hated the memory cycle, the commodity cycle, even though I believe that Sanjay Mehrotra was doing fantastic things, evolving memory for next-gen compute in mobile, autos, data centers. The street didn't believe it. So here we are at 120 bucks. So what happened? Earnings were right here on September 23rd. Several things happened. We're going to look at many of them and see what some of us missed. I wrote this piece in December. I've called Micron the megalodon of memory for a while. And I had actually done a presentation titled that in 2020, how they were, Sanjay was making advances to make memory intelligent and embedded, more than a mere commodity. So this is on my blog on school. You can find this, and it's got a lot of good slides in it from investor and education presentations that they put together. So explaining, what LPDDR is, GDDR, NAND and NOR. Guess who else missed Micron? Well, he missed the payday. David Tepper, I say he's been an unreasonably bullish fan of Micron in the early 2020s. I found out recently that he built his position to a 10% of his portfolio by 2021. Obviously a big bull, waiting for that payday that I was talking about earlier with, what Sanjay was building for, the next generations of memory in all sorts of connected and intelligent devices. Well, I came across something where he trimmed his position. He was down to 1% for the recent rally. So he had a 10% position and he got out before the payday. I double checked the math. He was even in the so somebody said, I think it was Motley Fool said he was down to 1% for the Sep quarter. Even at the June quarter, he was down to 1.6%. So he's got to be kicking himself. All right, SanDisk, another incredible story. We'll look at so you see the big candle that launches above 300. That's January 6th around CES. We'll look at that. All right, the Micron beat and scare report, September 23rd. This was Micron's NVIDIA moment. 46% year-over-year revenue growth to cross 11 billion. Gross margins surpassed 50% for the first time since 2018. And the big stat that changed the narrative, 56% of Micron's revenue now came from the data center. Fundamentally decoupling the stock from the boring PC smartphone cycle. And this is where DRAM and high bandwidth memory come in. So we're going to talk about this 2025 memory pivot that launched Micron and SanDisk and Western Digital and Seagate, for that matter. Storage did well. Back here. So, what was the pivot all about? Well, it wasn't just, it's this structural re-rating from commodity to unprecedented supply-demand imbalance. So what did the market miss? They missed three things: hyperscale hoarding, primarily from OpenAI, but some others; wafer cannibalization. Hey, we need it for, forget, all this low margin commodity stuff. We need it for these things for the data center. So there's less wafers. And then the crucial exit, if you know anything about Micron's consumer business. So repricing event. Okay. So OpenAI, this, I wasn't aware of this at the time until probably October, but Altman made a key land grab. Supposedly they were trying to grab 40% of the global DRAM wafer capacity, and they may have succeeded, but once everybody caught wind of it, there was panic buying. You're going to get all these slides too. Obviously, you can stop the video, read a slide in detail, but you'll get access to the deck. So it's been called the dirty DRAM deal, the triple D. OpenAI makes a $20 billion prepayment, reserves non-refundable capacity reservations to the big three: Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron. Most investment advisors, myself included, were looking at PC and smartphone weakness. Again, the commodity cycle. The multiplier is HBM4, high bandwidth memory. But there was another event in October. Jensen goes to Korea, and it was a dinner to remember. I wrote this on my blog: NVIDIA, Samsung, and Hyundai. So he sits down and has, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but it's the Korean word spelled Chimaek. It means chicken and beer. So they had chicken and beer. It was well publicized. All the press in Korea was watching it, and some deals were inked. An ex-technology observer said, when the CEOs of NVIDIA, Samsung, and Hyundai meet and have a shot, the future is being negotiated. So you can find this on my blog, but some of the things that were being negotiated were hundreds of thousands of GPUs for Korean firms that needed them. There was only three people at the dinner, but SK Hynix was involved in, behind the scenes, obviously, because this was the Korea Go Korea Summit. Speaking of which, I had no idea. I mean, the conglomerates in Korea are big and important. They always have been. Look at everything SK is into. Here's SK Hynix. For semiconductors, they have 12 subsidiaries, but they're in everything else: biopharma, oil and gas, it looks like, chemicals, energy. All right. The number two key driver of the surge, high bandwidth memory, requires approximately 3 times the wafer area of standard DRAM. So every bit of AI memory produced removed 3 bits of conventional capacity from the market. And this resulted in an inventory capitulation. Many analysts expected high inventory levels to cap the price growth. Instead, DRAM spot prices tripled between September and November as just-in-time supply chains collapsed. And here's a Bloomberg chart showing, I think this is spot DRAM. This is from a trader in Germany on his Bloomberg. Yeah, I believe this is spot DRAM, just soaring, So this is, you could almost say this is the chart of Micron, so to speak. Nothing, and boom. This is the trader in Germany. Yeah, he says the DRAM spot per Bloomberg. This is insane. Prices are rising so fast that Samsung has stopped quoting. Life is good in the memory sweet spot. Hynix is already sold out for fiscal year 26 in HBM, DRAM, and NAND. This is from a trader in France looking at similar things. This is priced in euros, but this was a global event. Oh, here's the French guy. Translated from French, so pardon that. It's a real holdup that's currently taking place in DDR4 and DDR5 RAM memories and NAND flash memories, whose prices have already tripled since September, with peaks of over 500% expected by next summer. This was in December, so they're talking about the coming summer. So here's the impact on the big three memory ecosystem. Again, SK Hynix sold out. Micron, finally, SK Hynix was considered the sole source of high bandwidth memory for a while. Micron moves in. They have a breakthrough in HBM4, allowed them to capture the overflow from Hynix, leading to the 42% Q4 stock rally. God, I thought it was a bigger rally than that, but anyway. So let's see here. Samsung is always going to be a player. You know, their phone rings a lot for the hyperscalers because, you know, they're the capacity king. All right, this is from TrendForce. If you don't know who TrendForce is, you can definitely find them on X. Remember, I preach use X. There's a lot of great companies, research being posted on X from original sources. TrendForce, their subscriptions are like, you know, $3,000 a year for their semiconductor stuff or more. This is their data. Memory chip capital expenditure growing sharply, DRAM and NAND. Again, from TrendForce, I published this on my blog in December. I was just scrambling on the web to find data about what was happening to prices. This section here, jump in DRAM and NAND demand for servers next year. 38 to 47% for DRAM, 29% to 40% for NAND. I think I break this down on the next slide. Yeah, so here's where it says server is the dark blue, that's DRAM. So you can see it going from 2025, the bit demand breakdown by percent from 38% to 40%. And then for NAND, again, look at the dark blue enterprise SSD for NAND, 29% to 40%. So that's SanDisk. All right. And lastly, the crucial shock, Micron in December announced phasing out Crucial because, you know, the margins aren't there serving that business and they need all the wafer silicon they can get for data center. This was Tom's Hardware reporting on it. Micron outlines grim outlook for DRAM supply in the first earnings call since killing Crucial and the SSD brand. CEO says it can only meet half to 2/3 of demand. So how did this impact storage? Things, you know, companies that weren't on your radar unless, you know, that was one of your favorite industries, like Western Digital. And why is this important? Well, AI needs training data, which lives on high capacity storage drives. So training itself doesn't use a lot of memory. Inference uses a lot of memory. So there's like two drivers here. You know, for Micron and SK Hynix, it's about HBM for inference. How can we get more memory involved to serve inference. And then for your SSD guys, you need massive storage for training. This was a quote from WDC at a NASDAQ investor conference. One hyperscaler is talking to us about extending a contract to calendar year 29. Exabyte demand growth trending mid 20% or year over year, with Q3 hitting 30%, well above the 15% base and 23% AI upside cases they had outlined previously. Here's Western Digital. Looks like the Micron chart almost. This is the Korea ETF, EWY. Most of you know it. It's soaring because of the Korea conglomerates. Samsung is 25% weighted in this ETF, and SK Hynix is actually Samsung might be more than 25% because I think SK Hynix is 25%. In any case, let's just call them, those two companies are half of this. And there's projections that the Kospi could continue soaring. So looking at EWY might not be a bad bet. Okay, so the new memory king, SK Hynix. They're, I was trying to see if I could buy the stock here. They're not going to, I thought they were going to have an ADR here, but they're not. So you either get access through EWY or you buy it on a forward exchange. You buy it, I think there are ways to do it on Asian exchanges or even European exchanges if you wanted exposure to the stock directly. Tom's Hardware talking about Samsung's Taylor, Texas fab could herald a breakthrough for the chip maker. Company plans 2026 risk production, new production flows, peliciles for EUV patterning as site targets 50,000 wafer starts per month. Wow. And Samsung is obviously, after the dinner, the chicken and beer dinner, the deals were made for high bandwidth memory that Jensen wants to secure for next gen GPU systems like Rubin. Okay, so I don't know where I got this, but NVIDIA is teaming with SK Hynix and Phison on a new AI SSD targeting 100 million IOPS, output operations per second, roughly 10 times the current AI server SSDs. So this is a big deal. Obviously, investors get a hold of this. Well, first, who knows first? It's the companies involved and anybody trying to secure supply, driving spot prices up, and then forward contracts are being made. Investors get hold of this information too, and Micron and SanDisk continue to take off in December. Oh, here's a great follow on X. So where it says our man in Taiwan, Dan Neistat. He used to be a journalist for, I think, Reuters. Now he lives in Taiwan and he's an independent semiconductor analyst. And what I like about him is he's getting, he looks at the Taiwan newspapers and press releases. He's getting all the news first. So that's why you want to follow him on X, because then he hammers it out. So that's where this came from. He is the source of this news. SanDisk, how the market finally valued flash correctly. Pure play bet on enterprise storage, which saw price hikes of 90% in Q4 as HDD shortages forced buyers toward NAND flash. But Barron's was still confused even on January 6th. Remember I showed you the chart, January 6th, where big, big fat candle. That was that day, January 6th, SanDisk was up 27.5%, launched above 300. Barron's couldn't figure it out. Here's the scoop. Jensen dropping some truth bombs. With existing high bandwidth memory, it's far from sufficient to support GPUs, and the memory bottleneck is only getting worse, right from the horse's mouth. Jensen also showed, concepts for a new memory storage platform. Obviously, he's got thousands of engineers working on this, positioning solid state drives alongside HBM. So that's where the surge in SanDisk comes in. Here's Citi about a week later. I think this was, following Jensen at CES talking about this. We estimate that approximately 1,152 terabytes of additional SSD NAND will be required per Vera Rubin server system to support NVIDIA's ICMS operations. I forget what ICMS stands for. Forgive me. Accordingly, assuming Vera Rubin server shipments of 30,000 units in 2026 and 100,000 units in 2027, NAND demand driven by ICMS is projected to reach 34.6 million terabytes in 2026 and 115.2 million terabytes in 2027. This represents 2.8% of expected global NAND demand in 2026 and 9.3% in 2027, a meaningful scale that is likely to create significant upside potential for demand. As a result, with this structural demand increase factored in, the global NAND supply shortage is, I can't read that because my Zoom toolbar is in the way. Global NAND supply shortage is expected to intensify further. Yes, we know that. All right. Now let's just talk about where this demand is coming from. I mean, Jensen's buying it, but it's also being driven by what the model builders are saying. Sam Altman, Dario Mode, builders at Meta, and Elon knows this too. Another great follow on X, Rohan Paul. I try and be good at collecting, important AI industry information and posting it, but he's phenomenal. I think he's in Germany. He's highlighting a new Google paper about LLM inference, which is limited by memory and networking. And it proposes 4 hardware shifts. So you can find this paper on that title. I'll try and read some of these hardware shifts. To address these challenges, we highlight 4 architecture research opportunities. High bandwidth flash for 10 times the memory capacity. All right, note that. So we're going to come back to that. HBF, just remember that, HBF, high bandwidth flash. All right, so general outlook, why this super cycle has legs through 2027 with a high CapEx lag. And the CapEx isn't slowing down. I mean, there's some people who think, I think I'll show you something here from a research house called Light Connecting, I think. They've been doing semis for 20 years. And they think that, okay, we just got the hyperscalers all reporting in late January, early Feb, and all raised their CapEx significantly. They're worried about, the CapEx is going like this. If there's any pullback, in the next quarters into 2027, that could create a hiccup, for the whole AI trade, especially semiconductors. So something to watch out for second half of 2026. I'll see if I have that slide. So we're beyond cyclicality. The barrier for entry for new AI players has shifted from who has the GPUs to who has the wafers. Okay, this graphic is from Semi-Analysis. Again, highlighting how HBM consumes 3 to 4 times more wafers per bit than standard DRAM, forcing production capacity to scale exponentially to match surging annual demand. And then I added, thus Micron's bold move to spend $100 billion. I wonder if it's that much. It probably is, to build a mega fab in New York. I believe in January they announced this new fab in New York. It won't even be done for 4 years, but this is what Sanjay is looking forward to. No longer being in the commodity cycle. Okay, what are the risk factors? This is a piece. Oh yeah, here it is. This is from Light Counting is the name of the firm, Light Counting. And they're looking at the extreme uptick in hyperscaler CapEx and just wondering if that, creates a hiccup when, if they scale back in Q3 or Q4. Okay. So we know there's power grid constraints, and then the AI CapEx bubble debate. All right. Just found this morning before I got on here and did this. This is on Bloomberg yesterday. A growing procession of tech industry leaders, including Elon Musk and Tim Cook, are warning about a global crisis in the making. A shortage of memory chips is beginning to hammer profits, derail corporate plans, and inflate price tags on everything from laptops and smartphones to autos and data centers. And the crunch is only getting worse. Okay, consider the source. Obviously, journalists, even at Bloomberg, like to write, clickbait and compelling headlines and, focus on the crisis, and, everybody wants to call the top in AI. But again, this is sort of that theme, can a shortage or a bottleneck in one area, whether it's energy or now memory chips, can that cause companies to scale back, right? Like, oh, this isn't going to be ready till then. Well, I might as well not buy this. That's sort of the way I've been thinking about it when I first looked at the energy bottleneck, and now we have the memory bottleneck. The light counting, assessment. The red line was CapEx up as of January 26, and after we got the hyperscaler earnings, it went like that. Boom. All right, let's talk about HBF, high bandwidth flash. I'm gonna you can go to my blog on school. It's called AI Stock Investing. I'll show it to you when I get off the slide deck here. I'll show you the website. But I started a series on HBF, and just trying to learn about it. And my idea is, hey, this is HBF is not a product being sold. It's being developed, and it's maybe it's part of the mix a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, depending on how fast somebody develops it. And it's about stacking NAND flash. So here's a little summary. SanDisk and SK are collaborating to standardize high bandwidth flash. Well, that's good. Well, you would think the Koreans would get together and do that, standardize it, right? They could sell more everywhere. Enterprises, data centers, edge devices, 8 to 16 times the capacity of traditional HBM at a similar cost. Stacking, I think I have a picture of how, if you want to visualize this. There we go. The HBF stack. Requires some special dies. Obviously good for substrates, packaging, interposers, and the dies. In that same thread that I just showed you in my school blog, I just asked Gemini for a 500 word brief on HBF. It's pretty decent. I learned what TSVs are through Silicon Vias. And this was from TrendForce very recently, like last week. TrendForce wrote this article about SK Hynix has unveiled a new semiconductor architecture concept centered on high bandwidth flash. A da, 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 da. So again, TrendForce is a great follow. You can find many of their articles are free on their site, which are condensed summaries of some of their research reports, which obviously they want you to buy for $6,000. All right. I think I'm wrapping up here pretty quick. Yeah, good. This is a nice short one. I could have gone on for longer, but I wanted to see if I could do one of these in under a half hour, and I'm pushing that right now. All right. If you missed Micron and SanDisk and Western and Seagate and whoever else, could Pure Storage offer an investment opportunity? Well, I think so. I'm long in the low 70s. Stock is really doing nothing. So I'm just doing my homework while it just sits here. Marvell could be another player. So I wrote a piece on Pure Storage with some independent analysis from some semiconductor guys on X. And these two threads talk about Pure Storage. I think that's it. Yeah, so let's take a look at my blog. Make sure you can find it. So if you just go to school and type AI stock investing, you should find it. But this is the URL right up here. And I did some think pieces this weekend. A couple of big think pieces on Peter Diamandis' new book with this German guy, this German engineer, I think. And did another one on the frontiers of science and engineering. Here's a great follow. Let's look at this guy. Vikram Sekar is an engineer for Qualcomm, and he's giving it all away. He writes a blog. You can obviously subscribe, but you can see, the intro to each of his blogs, but he posts a lot of stuff on X too. So find him. He does a video with Austin Lyons, this guy right here. He's with Creative Strategies, I think, and has his own semiconductor research firm. So Vic, as he often calls himself, is a great guy to learn from. Oh, just this morning, he published from another engineer who goes by Nutty at Nutty CLD on X. Who is an analog IC design engineer, a whole tutorial on substrates, and it's really good. It's an X article, and he puts graphics for each section. So if you want to learn about substrates and CoWoS and that kind of thing, check that out. All right, I was going to find. So to find my pieces on memory, you could just put in Pure Storage. And so I got this one thread focused on Pure Storage, but then this is the piece I published in early January, memory shortage updates. And whenever I do one of these, it's almost like an X thread where I make a lead post and then I keep adding information for a few weeks afterwards. So this is a really good thread. Got some good graphics in here. NVIDIA's AI GPU structure from single die to multi-die chiplet. Why the memory market may extend the super cycle. Obviously, what we're talking about. Koreans no longer wonder why Jensen Huang came to Korea last October to court them. Here he is with the chicken. But I've kept adding to this thread. A lot of good contributors in here. In in This is more than a blog. This is a community. I have over 500 members, and I probably have about 15 engineers from all different fields. So it's great to have engineers because even if they're not in technology or semiconductors, they think differently, right? Their analysis is, they're asking the right questions. They're thinking things through about capacity and constraint and design and that sort of thing. So a lot of good stuff in here. I'm always updating it. So definitely come on over and check that out. Because I'll just keep doing the same thing, just like the slide presentation you watched. I'm going to keep adding to, these threads. And I mean, basically try and stay on top of what are the dynamics of this memory shortage and where can we position? I mean, people ask me every day on here, can I still buy Micron and SanDisk? And I say, yes, try and get an edge, look for a 5 or 10% pullback. And there is volatility. Let's go to the chart and see. We're just loading. So here's Pure Storage. Yeah. I mean, I'm nibbling at it here, when it gets down to 70, and it's just hanging out doing nothing. So let's look at Micron, where you could or should buy it. So obviously this 350 is a shelf of support. 375. I don't think it's going to go below 375 unless we get some big correction or bad news. And eventually it could, bump into the 50-day again, this month or next if we do get some corrective action in the market. But the way things are going, it may not even fill this gap, back down to 375. So SanDisk, same sort of thing. Yeah, you'd be lucky if you get a pullback to 500 where you want to grab it. 550, there's going to be buyers. I think I told somebody, look for this gap to fill. Yeah, last week I said, hey, yeah, see if we fill this gap down to 600, and just did it. Came down to 586. Buyers were scooping them up. So, all right. That was our quick dive into the memory super cycle. Hope you enjoyed it. You know where to find me on X at Kevin B. Cook, over on School, in my blog community. And you can email me if you have any questions, kcook@zacks.com. And we'll talk to you next month.